Well, hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Bible Beyond the Basics podcasts. We are your hosts, Pastors Jason and Bob. We thank you once again for joining us. We know that the anticipation has building since we left you so long ago, right as the Advent season was starting. Now we're back with some incredible new content for you. We're thankful for you joining us. And as always, Bob, I have a question for you. Bob, one day we were doing communion in this very church, and the pitcher and the cup are always pre-filled before I get there. And I just checked to make sure there was liquid in there. And I poured it one day, and I thought, well, this looks a little bit different. Turned out the only thing we had for that morning was Coca-Cola. But on other times, I've poured it. I've come up to the pitcher on other days, and I've poured it, and it's just been water. And I thought, what a faithful response that is, just waiting for Jesus to turn the water into wine.
There you go, yeah.
What's the strangest thing you've ever found in a pitcher when you're doing communion?
Oh, well, we did not set this up, and it also happened here.
Okay.
You've never heard the story of Maundy Thursday?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Well, I think, no, it was a regular, it wasn't Maundy Thursday, because that was another occasion when the executive presbyter was visiting, and we kind of forgot to do communion.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was another service, very important communion service, and the deacons were in the kitchen and realized, oh my gosh, we don't have enough grape juice.
Yeah.
And so the Welch's wasn't there. And so they rushed out, grabbed something from the supermarket, brought it back, poured it, we were all set, everything was good. We found out in taking it, it was prune juice. One of my favorite stories from Grove Church.
There you go. I mean, it has a certain healthiness to it. It's really going to get people excited for.
Well, we had to finish the service quickly.
Yeah, there you go. To help you on your way out.
Oh.
I just hope the bathrooms were accessible at the time.
That's right. That's right. But I do like the idea that, the water, and they're waiting for it to turn into wine. Which,
I always thought the water to be so incredibly amusing because, Jesus turning water into wine. People are just anticipating the miracle.
There you go. It's beautiful. Because we are talking John 2, 1 to 11, the wedding at Cana, and Jesus turning water into wine.
Your question this morning is, how could Jesus turn water into wine? It's a funny way to phrase that because, is there a scientific process? Can you turn water into wine? What do you need to do to make that happen, Bob?
Well, actually, that's...
If we're low on wine, what do we do?
Well, with everything, we adapt and improvise. I love C.S. Lewis' answer, because C.S. Lewis was asked that in his book Miracles. He says, water always can turn into wine. It's the natural process if you have the right ingredients.
There you go.
So, in fact, he was pointing out that most of the miracles simply are natural events speeded up, which is a fascinating way of looking at it. So, and I just, by the way, nice to be back with everything. Thank you, and I hope everybody's having a good time and appreciate your comments. And yes, Jesus was born in the kitchen. I'll remind people of that.
I got so many comments about that one.
Did you?
I had people in Bloomsburg talking about Jesus being born in the kitchen.
Well, it's the correct reading because it's mine. Actually, it's from Ken Billy. Really, people reacted. Okay.
Yeah, I got a lot of comments on that one.
Well, good. Well, we're going to do it again with the whole concept of the miracles, because when we were having Bible study here years ago, and we were walking through the Gospel of John, it suddenly occurred to just about everybody in the room that John is a tease. because all these miracles take place. There's 7 miracles during 7 different kind of occasions, festivals and such as today with the wedding. And it's interesting because the miracles really don't have a major effect on the crowd. It has an effect on some of the participants, but it's not until it's explained or explained by Jesus that the miracles themselves do not produce faith. It is the interpretation and the words and the proclamation. And so the miracles are simply a send-up for an occasion for Jesus to give and teach, a message and teach.
So clearly the most important thing is the sermon.
Well, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
There we go. There we go.
So one of the things that we were taught as sermonizers was in getting into the text, just ask a lot of questions. Hold off reading the commentaries to get the background, the official academic stuff. Just begin by asking questions, such as what we can do here with the marriage of Canaan and the water into wine. And why was Jesus there? Was he invited? Why in Canaan?
Was he a wedding crasher?
Was he a wedding crasher with the others? Whose wedding was it? What's his mom doing there? Why is it mentioned that it's a wedding? Is there significance to that? What's with this water of purification?
And clearly with John, everything he does is theological. So setting a wedding at the beginning of the text clearly has theological meaning, because everything John does has it. John cares more so about theology than he does about history or context like that. Not that any of the Gospels are purely historical, but John just doesn't care about order of events or anything like that. He's trying to make a theological point. So when we read John, we have to ask a question like, why does this narrative begin with a wedding? Why is that how Jesus' ministry begins?
Chapter 2.
Just
following the baptism. Water, wine. We'll get a lot of that throughout the rest of the gospel, because as you're pointing out, his architecture of the gospel is not at all chronological.
No,
it's thematic. It's theological. The 7s times 7 times 7.
People who have been trying to make a historical account of the Gospels, trying to look at the chronology for years, have said, well, did Jesus turn over the tables in the temple once or twice? Because John has it here at the beginning, not recognizing the fact that John plays loose with all that stuff, and he says, I'm going to put this here at the beginning because of its theological import.
So we continue asking these theological questions because that's how you appreciate what John is trying to get across.
And that's what John's trying to do,
Now, how do you make wine anyway? What does this passage say about Jesus' relationship to his mom? Why did they run out of wine, which would be a terrible embarrassment and disgrace? The party's nearly over, and then you get the better stuff. Interesting. That was careless of the host. By the way, are we talking red wine or white wine?
Clearly it was Welch's grape juice. That's what was created on this day.
We joke because when we were in Armenia doing that Young Life thing a couple years back, the Zacarians and myself, we went out one day and bought a bottle of wine. And Keros is the maker, the winemaker, and the label said winemakers for 4,000 years. So wine's been around for a while. It just ain't Napa Valley.
Yeah.
So and Pennsylvania is trying, and maybe in about 100 years it'll be adequate. My wife cannot drink Pennsylvania wine, It ties in because the text is actually, it's the Elasa, the inferior wine, lesser in quality, is the wine that they first shared, which was probably all they could come up with. All right.
Yeah. And it seems like whoever this was, perhaps they just weren't the most well off of people or whatever was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, because you
Running out of wine, not quality wine, but
you give what you can. You give what you can. And by the way, it was the job of the best man to arrange all this.
yeah, my best man couldn't make it because he had a band camp that he had to attend, so I had to choose somebody else at the last minute.
And isn't it interesting that we just had the episode with John, who is the best man to the groom, and setting things up? Oh, interesting. There's so much going on in this. This is actually one of the fun texts. It's also the source of a lot of.
So was Jesus the best man at this wedding?
No, I'm saying.
No, I'm just saying, like, he's providing the wine and such. Was he?
Well, there you go. That's because his mom told him, and he's
Well.
good to what mom says. But yeah, no, that's a fascinating insight. That's great. So I'm particularly intrigued by the fact that the other three gospels don't have this. Only the fourth gospel has it.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? My suggestion is it's a dramatic parable, acted out parable, which the other gospels have as a saying of Jesus. I think Jesus is dramatizing the saying about wineskins. And you cannot put new wine in old wineskins. Now, having been in the 60s and 70s, I know what a wineskin is.
Sure. I've heard of them.
We were passing them around in the Lincoln Memorial during Nixon's second inauguration parade. We were not at the parade. We were at something else that was saying, we don't like this inauguration. Now, we accept that Nixon won, folks. We don't debate that. But we were there because...
Whatever could you mean, Bob?
But we were passing around wineskins on the bus and in the Lincoln Memorial and during our protest, which I'll tell is another story for another day. But the idea of the wineskins, because the wine is going to be robust and fermenting. And an old wineskin can't handle that kind of pressure that builds up. And so you need a new wineskin. The old one will burst.
So what, you make the wine or ferment the wine in the wineskin and then you use it and it's done?
It can be done that way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in those days. But the idea, again, if you have something that's worn out, it's not going to handle that which is good. So now we also have, I'm fascinated. The other thing that fascinates me is you have 6 stone jars standing there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Oh, I'm watching the time. I'm eating it up here. What's these jars of purification? Okay, and he fills them up with water. Well, that's the rite of purification for all the guests. They would use the water. They don't have water in them anymore because they use them for washing up. Not dirty washing, but the formal sort of anointing and ritual cleansing. And then all of a sudden, the transformation takes place, and you get 120 gallons times 6. It's kind of interesting. I worked it out. You have 120 gallons. By the way, that's 600 bottles of a normal Pinot Noir.
Oh my goodness.
Cabernet. Well, it's interesting because there's a scroll that Jesus would have read, which is the scroll of Baruch. And in the scroll of Baruch, the new age, which will be inaugurated by the coming of the Messiah. When the Messiah comes, every vine will produce 1,000 branches. Every branch will produce 1,000 clusters. Every cluster will produce 1,000 grapes. And every grape will produce, drum roll, 120 gallons.
So is that part of why Jesus curses the fig tree? Because it's not doing what it's supposed to, as it was predicted when the Messiah would come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're supposed to be fermented. We're supposed to be fruitful. We're supposed to be growing. But again, this is chapter 2, and we've just had John the Baptist, who represents the old. We have Jesus who's coming in to represent the new. Jesus isn't rejecting the old. It's just bringing it to fruition, fulfillment. So if you have all these stone jars, now have become not just inferior wine or normal table wine, but the best wine. And they're filled to the brim, and they each hold 20 or 30 gallons. So now what we have is a lot of wine, 120 gallons or more. The waters of purification in the old containers have become something new, something robust, something fermented, something fulfilled. We're supposed to have the new. Jesus is bringing forth the new. Jesus is inviting us to a party, to an occasion of vitality. Let John the Baptist point out what's wrong. Jesus is going to show us how to be new and right.
Yeah, and we see that parallel often with Jesus and John the Baptist. John comes declaring everyone's broods of vipers, and John makes the comment, he's like, I didn't eat anything. Or Jesus makes the comment, John didn't eat anything, I eat everything. We're both wrong.
And so Jesus, his views of the Sabbath,
not
rejecting them, but what's the purpose of it? Waters of purification. Not rejecting them, but what's the purpose of them?
And I think even looking at the two of them, you get an example of how there's a broad variety of the way that we can live out our spiritual lives. The purpose of believing in Jesus is not to be religious.
The purpose is not religion. That's not the aim. That is a process in order to live what you just said, the spiritual life. Religion is supposed to give way or lead us to the spiritual life. Filled with the Holy Spirit, water, wine, and we're going to get later in John, blood. Now the other thing that really is a great way to kind of tidy up, again, why a wedding? Well, throughout the Bible, what does a wedding represent?
Fertility.
Fertility. The union of God's people with God, bringing forth a new humanity.
And I mean, the image you get in Revelation and throughout John as well is Jesus being the bridegroom of the church.
Right. So we have powerful imagery here that Jesus is dramatizing what the message that we hear about the wineskins. It is a new age, friends, and it really is meant to be a wonderful world filled with wonderful people. And I believe it still is.
Well, God bless everyone. Have a great week. Next week, we're going to ask the question, is Jesus the only way to God? Should be fun.
Oh, yes.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.